Okay, so welcome to our podcast. This is a little bit different today because this podcast is a spin-off of our radio show. So thanks for coming. I don't really like to prepare for interviews. I just kind of like to wing interviews. And I was really nervous about you coming on this podcast because you're like an ADHD expert. Is that like what do I call you? Are you an ADHD expert?
Yeah, you can say expert. I like the word expert.
And I'm insecure because I've been diagnosed before by like psychiatrists and stuff, but I also don't believe them. But I don't know. But you got this book, right? It all makes sense now. So explain the book to me, and then I'd like to go over your history and a bunch of other things.
Sure. So as you just said, the book is called It All Makes Sense Now. Embrace Your ADHD Brain to Live a Creative and Colorful Life. Mm-hmm. This book is a combination of personal stories from my past that relate to how ADHD has shown up in my life. I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was almost 40. So there were a lot of things happening that felt really chaotic that I didn't have a great explanation for in my life. And then I start each chapter with an anecdote that leads into an explanation of a symptom or something that's a common challenge for people with ADHD. And then I kind of explain what's actually happening in the brain behind that challenge. And then I finish it with strategies so that people have takeaways and a way to kind of apply some of the information they're learning to improve their life.
Is that why you have it's called It All Makes Sense? Like did something like you get diagnosed, you're like, oh, my whole life makes sense now.
Absolutely.
Like what? What was like what's something that happened in your past that now makes sense?
I could think back right now. I have a 16-year-old who just got her driver's license a few months ago. And I was super anxious about that because of my driving history. So when I was a teenager, I got my license. Within 6 months, I had been in 3 accidents. I was pulled over 1 week, 3 times in a row for not having my lights on. This is before automatic lights were a thing. Constantly locking my keys in the car. And I just could not figure out why this wasn't happening to everybody else. I remember my dad sitting me down after the 3rd accident, which was me backing into a McDonald's drive-through line or sign, which I don't even know how to explain how that happened. And he just said, Meredith, why does this keep happening? You just have to pay attention. And I was like, I know, but I don't know how. I can't. So I thought I was trying to pay attention. So that really made a lot more sense when I understood how differently my brain is wired. A couple other things that stand out. I really struggled with losing things, working memory. So I would find like the coffee pot in the fridge. I would find like my keys in the most random place. And, it's almost like I was doing things, but my brain was somewhere else. And that made a lot more sense when I understood that I had ADHD.
Is ADHD different in men and women?
I think that it can show up differently, like across, all of human experiences. I think a lot of it really depends on if you are what they call predominantly hyperactive or predominantly inattentive. So it used to be thought that girls and women tended to have the inattentive type of ADHD, so they had less hyperactivity. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that girls and women are socialized to channel their hyperactivity differently. I think we're expected to not be bouncing off the walls, to calm down, to be a good girl. So I think we just get really good at not showing that to the world. So it shows up differently, but I don't know if it has anything to do with like the brain structure or if it has to do with how we're socialized in the world.
I have this friend of mine. He has ADHD, and he's one of the few people where I love him so much. We'll go to lunch, and let's say an hour lunch, we will talk about 45 different things, and we follow each other perfectly. It's the best. It's literally,
So
right? But he's also medicated. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on that? And have you been medicated? Are you medicated? Is that too personal? But you wrote a book, so you should be open.
No, I can totally talk about that. I am really open to medication. I have been on meds in certain periods of my life where I couldn't risk having days where I just could not turn my brain on.
On? You could turn it on?
Turn it on. Like, do you ever experience, Johnjay, the feeling of like some days your brain is like locked in and you can be super focused on something for like hours on end, and then the next day it's like getting started on anything feels impossible? Does that ever happen to you?
I mean, I have a version of something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have like, I go through things where like I really want to be a magician. I want to learn everything I can about magic, and then it fades after a while. I get into these things.
Yeah.
Right? I'm really passionate about certain things, but then sometimes I stick with it. Let me just tell you, I was so nervous about you coming here. I didn't want to have ADHD during our interview, so I went and I worked out for an hour to get my yayas out, as my wife says. Then I went and I sat in a red light bed for 20 minutes. Then I went and I ran on a treadmill for a mile. Then I went and sat in a 20-minute infrared sauna for 20 minutes. Then I went in the hot tub. Then I went in the cold plunge and I took a shower. And then I came here, hoping to be like calm.
You can't have ADHD in front of the lady that knows about ADHD.
Right. I just wanted to be. I just didn't want you to go, what a terrible interview.
Oh
Wasn't
my
paying
gosh.
attention.
No, I love it. I mean, I think that we could have the type of conversation that you have with your friends, where we take it in different directions. Your ADHD listeners, they'll be able to keep up.
Yeah. I go all over the place.
But I think that's really interesting that you brought that up, because my relationship, to bring it back to the medication question, is when I'm in periods of my life where I can do all those things that you mentioned. I love to exercise too. I
don't love to exercise.
But you love the impact it has on you, maybe.
Yeah, I like the results of it. Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah. I discovered in my early adulthood that my brain was different on exercise. And it was kind of the same thing where I was not an athletic kid. I didn't have like a love of sports or anything, but I discovered running, and I was like, wow, I have a different brain on the days I run. But I couldn't run 7 days a week. I ran 6 days a week, in different phases of my life. And that helped a lot to an extent. And then doing all of the other things with health and nutrition and self-care, when I can do all of those things, I don't need to be medicated. When I am going through times in my life where those things are not as accessible because of life circumstances, where I'm at with kids, what I'm taking care of, those are times when I've been on meds, and they've helped a lot during those times.
Okay, so I was seeing a therapist for a while, right? And he's like, you have ADHD. So he puts me on meds. And I remember I was getting on an airplane, and he put me on Adderall. Okay, so I take this Adderall, and I get on a plane for the first time, and I'm in the emergency room. And the flight attendant says to me, sir, you're in the emergency room. I need your verbal, do you understand how they do that in the emergency room? And I couldn't speak. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And I just went to sleep.
Yeah.
I could not, I was out. And I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So I called the shrink and I said, I can't be on this stuff. It's terrible. So he put me on something else called Vyvanse, right? So I took Vyvanse, and I took it for a few months while I was on the air. And I mean, I really felt different. Like I felt like I could pay attention. And I was like, much like this book, it all makes sense now. I was like, wait a minute, is this how people are every day? Like this is what it's like to be normal, to pay attention. And I didn't like the way I was on the radio. I didn't like I kind of feel sometimes now in my career, in my life, that ADHD, if that's what I truly have, has been a benefit to me. Right. So I went off the Vyvanse. Now, I will say this. I go to LA once a year. I mean, I go a few times a year, but I go once a year for this conference. And what they do is they bring out, I sit in this theater, and they bring out all the new music for the upcoming year. Right. So all the new artists come, and it's a really cool thing. They, like, Jennifer Lopez, here's my new song. Justin Bieber, here's my new song. Hope you like it. But it's like 10 hours. And I can't sit through it. But I take a Vyvanse, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting how you mentioned that it works for the focus, but it changes some other things. Something that I think is super interesting about ADHD brains is that the way we filter information is different. So our brains take in a lot more of what's going on around us. So that's why we struggle to direct our attention. So I could be talking to you, but I'm also hearing the cars out there. I'm noticing what this guy over here is doing, and I'm putting that all together kind of like in the background. And that makes us really creative people. It makes us really intuitive. It's probably what makes you a really awesome radio host, because you're able to kind of tie a story together really, really quickly because you have absorbed a lot of information that other people were tuning out because they were focusing on the most important thing in the moment. So I think that makes sense that when you can have that like really, really directed focus, you do kind of lose everything else that you're picking up around you. So in certain contexts, not being able to focus so intently on that one, important thing in front of you can actually lead to other really great things that benefit you in other contexts.
Does your book help people who gets this book? Someone who has ADHD and they want to know how to survive every single day? Or is it someone that's trying to transition out of HD? Can you get out of ADHD? No, you're stuck with it.
It's a lifelong thing. Yeah. It is a neurobiological, they call it a disorder, but whether you identify with that term is personal.
Right.
But technically, it's typically something that you are born with. And if you're diagnosed as an adult, you have to show evidence that this existed in your childhood too. So yes,
like
you
what?
Can like for me, it would be going back and being like all the car accidents.
What about before that?
Even before that, as a kid, like I got good grades in school, but I was constantly fidgeting. Like I'm seeing you bounce your leg. Like I was the leg bouncer. No, it's fine. It's like so funny for me I love being able to see ADHD in action.
So you would say, looking at me, that I have it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you really do. And I don't think it's a bad thing. And that's what we have to, and that doesn't mean that you're not managing it really, really well. And I think we have to stop looking at like the name ADHD the way we do. Like the word deficit is like really not the whole picture, right? I look at ADHD from a neurodiversity lens. So it's not, to me, a disorder. It's a different way of being. So it can feel like a disorder if you don't have support, if you're not in an environment that makes sense, if you're in the wrong job that like doesn't really activate your brain in the right way. It can feel really disabling. But if you have the right environment, you know how your brain works, you know what works for you, and you have support, it can be really just an important type of brain to have in this world.
So let me ask you a couple of things. Tell me, I'll give you some scenarios. Tell me if it's an ADHD thing. Let's say I got to go to a company function, and there's advertisers and clients there, and I talk to them. And I think I could do really well in little doses. When I talk to somebody for a long time, I don't know what to say. And I might have another disorder besides ADHD, but I'll be sitting there staring at someone, talking to them, and I'm like, as I'm talking to them, I'm going, oh my God, what do I say now? What do I say now? They're on to me. I'm not paying attention. I better move and go over there now. Is that something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you kind of, because you've known that that's been a struggle in the past, you're probably like thinking ahead, like, oh, I've got to know what to say next versus being able to tune into what they're saying and be present in that conversation.
Yeah, like I can't be, like my wife, she'll talk to people and she has these wonderful conversations with all these different people. The same with I have a neighbor friend of mine. He's the nicest guy. They just talk and talk and talk. And I'm like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't. I don't know how to do it.
Is it different depending on what they're talking about?
I don't know. Maybe also, I was thinking about what you said when you were a kid. Like for me, when you said, this is such a great title. It all makes sense now. Because for me, I remember going back to my childhood, and I remember like my dad trying to teach me homework, and I didn't get it, math or certain spelling, and I remember he'd get so mad at me. And my sister, she's like a genius. She got top of her class, graduated magna cum whatever, UCLA in English, and she was just so smart. And we had the same parents. And I remember she was younger than me, and she would understand my homework, and I didn't understand my homework. And at the time, whatever, I didn't get it. And I think that if the tools that we have nowadays, I probably could have used those tools. In fact, I don't really know how I got to where I was in school. I think I failed up, if that makes sense, right? Because I didn't understand so much going on. I was just talking to let's see, I'm all over the place right now. My son is 19 years old, and he's going to be a freshman in college. I was a freshman in college at 17, and I just don't think I was ready for it, right? I don't think I was developed anywhere near where he is. And I think it took me 7 years to get through school. It took me forever, and I didn't have any help. So I don't know, is that ADHD?
Yeah, one really interesting thing about ADHD is that they have evidence that ADHD children's brains are typically certain regions of their brain, like the prefrontal cortex, develop about 3 years later than their peers. So it's not that you are less smart, but your brain was catching up to certain developmental milestones like slower. So that may be why that young adulthood really was a little bit harder for you, because part of the brain that's impacted by ADHD, it struggles with executive functions. Have you heard that term before?
No.
Okay, so those executive functions are a set of things that your brain needs to be able to do, like prioritizing, motivation, self-management. So things like getting through the boring tasks of life, focus, cognitive flexibility, all of those things are impacted by ADHD, and they develop slower. So they're all skills that you need to like turn your homework in on time, to, arrive at class on time.
I just would never do my homework.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I was that kid. The reason I got good grades is because if I'm interested in something, I will remember it.
Right.
I'll remember it for a really long time. But I can take a test and pass it usually, because I'm pretty good at like noticing patterns and context clues.
Well, how do you have ADHD and write a book? That's impressive. I'll be reading a book. I read it. I have so many books. I'm currently reading 7 or 8 books, and I can't get through one. I read the same page over and over and over again. Do you have that too?
I've always actually loved to read if I like what I'm reading. If it's a boring book, I will DNF that book like so fast. I won't make myself push through. But I was always a reader growing up. I've always really loved to write, so that helped.
So are you like a low-level ADHD? Because you seem really
No,
functional.
I'm very ADHD. Really? Yeah, I'm very good at masking my ADHD. That's, I think, why it took me so long to get diagnosed, is because I figured out really early. I went to Catholic school growing up. And girls like me that questioned authority and wanted to do things differently, like, we didn't have the best outcomes in terms of.
Have you had ADHD issues like in your marriage? Is there a side effect of that? Like with
Yes,
your husband?
there definitely is. I wrote about it a little bit in my book. My husband is extremely neurotypical, very like responsible. He's like, we're like yin and yang, I feel like. And it worked out really well in a lot of ways, because he's helped me get through like the mundane things in life, because he's so organized. And I've helped him be more fun. Like, I'm the fun one in the marriage.
Did that just happen, or did you seek him out?
I think we kind of figured that out right away. I actually was probably attracted to people that were more chaotic earlier in my life. Like, he was the first like responsible person that I found a connection with. But I think I knew what I needed, and it worked out really well, I think, for both of us. But sometimes we do come into conflict where I need to be able to operate in the cycles that make sense for my brain. Like, I'll get really hyper-focused on a project and see it through, and that will be my life for like 4 days, and then I'm like a potato for a couple of days. And even like the most basic things can be hard for me at times, like unloading the dishwasher, making a meal, like just the everyday life things, because ADHD brains are driven by interest, and that stuff is not interesting. Whereas my husband, like, it feels so foreign to me. He can wake up in the morning and like start unloading the dishwasher. I would never be able to do that. I can wake up in the morning, I have to drink a cup of coffee, which is a stimulant, which is basically what ADHD meds are. And then I have to go for a run, and then I have to do 4 more things before I can even face like some of those more mundane things of life. So him not understanding why I'm this way caused some conflict, and me not understanding why he's not more impulsive and fun and like ready to just like let life happen. At times was hard, but overall I think we have found a good partnership because we appreciate each other's differences.
Is this a symptom of ADHD? And I think I saw that it is piles of stuff.
Yes.
I have piles all over my house.
Yeah, and it can be a lot of things. I think what probably is happening with, we call them doom piles, like things
Yeah.
that just accumulate. Sometimes we don't realize it, but we're afraid to put things away
Yeah.
because it's out of sight, out of mind for us. I
Yeah.
mentioned working memory earlier. So working memory is like, it's not your short-term memory, but it's kind of like that. It's more like the scratch pad in your brain that has the steps needed to like work through something. And our working memory is trash. So we might like have a item and be like, okay, I need to go put it somewhere. But our brain's not going to hold on to where we put it later. So if we put something in a drawer and we need it later, we don't know where it is. So that's why we have so many things out in the doom pile, because if we can see it, we remember it exists.
Is that in here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's a
so
whole
good.
chapter on that stuff.
Oh, really? Because my wife gets, she's used to it now, but she'll be like I'll have all my piles, and then let's say we're having a function or people over, then my pile goes into a box, and the box goes in the garage, and then if I ever need something, I got to go through my piles of boxes to see what all the things are. I have piles of clothes.
Yep.
I have piles of vitamins. I have piles of everything all over the house, and it's frustrating. And I feel bad for her.
Yeah.
Because she likes to keep it clean. She sounds like your husband. She's really buttoned down.
Yeah, he would love to not see my clutter, but
Yeah,
like if
clutter.
if he puts my vitamins away, I don't take my vitamins for a month. I forget that they're there, like that they're part of my routine. So
Let me ask you this. Speaking of vitamins, last night I even said to my, this was last night. I said, "This is so crazy. I don't remember if I already took my vitamins." Is that
that's
right?
working memory.
It freaking blew my mind.
Yeah,
I was like, "How?" I thought maybe it was the beginning of dementia, but I was like, "I think I took them. I don't remember. It was a couple hours ago."
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. I'll be like, "Did I take that? I don't know." That's where like a pill box comes in, like the old people ones where they just like divide it out.
Right.
Use those for your vitamins, because then if it's gone for Tuesday, you know you took it.
Yeah, but see, that's something like I don't want to do. I if I travel,
Yeah.
I set up the pill stuff, but I just take them all one. I don't know. I don't like to do. I can't explain it, but it's. How about this? What about, is there a symptom? Is it ADHD, or is it also like adult autism? Have you heard of that one yet? Like how do you know the difference between that?
Well, they're kind of like a Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap. So it can be very tricky. I would say if you suspect either, getting evaluated is really, really helpful.
But I don't want to go, like I went online and took a little quiz, and it was like, it said that I already got, the psychiatrist told me I had ADHD, but the online quiz said I might have the adult autism.
Okay.
So I was like, but I don't, it's an online quiz.
I've taken those online quizzes.
Also
I know
said I was
exactly what you're
20%
talking
gay.
about. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I'm not an expert on autism. I do have autistic family members, and I have, the community is so overlapping because a lot of people with ADHD have both. We call that ADHD now.
Oh, I've never heard that before. What's it called? Odd ADHD?
Yeah,
Oh, I gotta write that down.
I don't know if I'm getting the acronym right, but
Odd
yeah,
ADHD.
that is something that they're seeing more and more. I actually think that years from now we'll realize like these neurodiverse brains don't always fit in one box or the other. But there are a lot of symptoms that typically are put in the autism box, but many people with ADHD experience like getting overstimulated. I don't know if that happens to you. It happens to me a lot, where like
what's
certain
an example?
environments where when I was like taking my kids to the bounce house place when they were little, and there was like the noise from the bounce house and screaming kids, and like someone's talking to me over here, like I could handle it when I was in the moment. I would be exhausted. Like my brain would be
Parties,
fried.
New
Yeah.
Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, I don't need them.
Yeah.
I don't. I have to go to a lot of functions, and I just like dread that stuff.
Like you're exhausted afterwards, even
Exhausted.
even if you're like, I'm pretty extroverted, but I still feel like I need to recover from things like that. And that I think has more to do again with that filtering system in our brain. It's not filtering out everything that's going on around us in the same way someone else's brain is. So we're like, it's letting in more noise, it's letting in more light. We're feeling all of that more, and so we get overstimulated more easily. That is typically under the autism umbrella as like an official symptom, but there's overlap there.
Yeah, I remember being a kid going, I'm making this all about me, I'm sorry. But I remember going to Old Tucson. You ever been to Old Tucson? It's like an old Western.
Yep.
When I was a kid, and the guns was too loud. I never liked fireworks. I never wanted anything, all that stuff. But so this book, is this your first book?
Yeah.
And when did it come out, and how do you get it?
Almost exactly a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So it is on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Target. A lot of independent bookstores have it. It's pretty
Is it
widely
self-published?
available. No,
So
I went with a traditional publisher.
Wow,
So
that's great.
Yeah.
And so what's your background? Like, where did you, you're not a doctor, or are you a doctor?
I'm not a doctor.
So I just called you an ADHD expert, but what, like you studied it, you have a psychology degree?
I do have a psychology degree. I did not get it to study ADHD. I think I got it because I was like, what is going on in my brain? I don't know what's happening here. But I've always been interested in how
So you felt different your whole life?
Oh, 100%.
Me too.
Yeah, I just felt, and I couldn't pinpoint it. There were times when I was going through things in my early adulthood where I would like talk to my doctor and they'd be like, I think you're anxious. I think this is anxiety. And I was like, I'm not though. Like sometimes I get like situationally, I'll be anxious for, a big interview or something like that. But I didn't feel like that fit. I felt like I was depressed sometimes, but not like overall.
Are you okay being alone?
It depends. Now that I'm around people so much, I like it a lot more.
You like being alone a lot more, or you like being
alone?
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of that ambivert personality where I do need people, but sometimes I need to be by myself. I can self-entertain pretty easily. But I definitely felt really different. I would even have people be like, why do you think that way? Like, why are you like this? And I'm like, I don't know.
Do you have a lot of friends?
I had a decent amount of friends. Some of them, friendships didn't always last very long. I felt like I would have really intense friendships, and then there would be like a miscommunication. I was really bad at remembering people's birthdays. If I moved, it was kind of like that person disappeared, even though they did mean a lot to me. I was bad about keeping up.
You mean growing up?
Yeah.
Did you move a lot growing up?
I moved when I was in, like right before high school. I actually moved to Arizona from Michigan, and then I moved for college, and then I moved after college, and then I came back here. So,
Wait, so you went to high school here?
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Chandler High.
So did I.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Get out of here.
That's wild.
What? What? You're a wolf.
Yep.
Wow.
Back when it was the only high school in Chandler.
Yeah, I went to Chandler Junior High.
Okay.
So I went to I went to Knox Elementary School. So in 5th grade, I was in Tucson.
Okay.
6th grade, I was in Chandler. Then you go to Chandler Junior High, and it's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at Chandler Junior High. Then Chandler High is 10th grade.
Yep.
Right? And then after 10th grade, I moved to Los Angeles for 11th grade. Then I moved to San Diego for 12th grade.
Okay.
Which sucks to be moving around like that all the time.
Yeah.
But my close friends are here. Here. Wow, wow.
I had a very similar experience because I went to Catholic school in Michigan, and it ended at 6th grade. I went to 7th grade at like the public junior high in the town I lived at. Moved here for 8th grade, which I went to Anderson Junior High, which was also 7, 8, 9. So I felt so ripped off because I was like, I'm going to be in high school. And then I was like, moved here, and I'm like, nope, you got an extra year at junior high. And then I went to Chandler High. So it was a lot of transition, and I think that made it really hard. And that was before we had cell phones, it was in the pager era. But even as an adult, I was very close with, I think, the people that like got me. But like if I had an acquaintance or a friend where I felt like I just, kind of never got past the small talk phase with them, I kind of had no problem like leaving them behind when a life.
What about
changed.
as an adult? Do you have new friends now?
Yeah, I'm pretty social.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of weird. I have a couple friends from when I was growing up in Chandler, since I've known them since 6th, 7th grade, pretty close. And then nothing in the later years in life, no friends from college. A couple of friends when I got in the radio career, but nothing really. But now, as I call myself now as a grown up, I have like 2 or 3 new friends that I just adore.
Yeah,
and I love hanging out with them. It's weird. I've never had that before.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if that's an ADHD thing or maybe it's kind of weird. I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm not as old as I am. Does that make sense?
That is actually so wild that you said that, because when I was taking my courses to become an ADHD coach, one of the first modules, they were like, people with ADHD look and act younger even as adults. And I was like, what? How do we look and act younger? That makes no sense to me. But I do think it is some of that like curiosity that is part of our brain. Like I mentioned earlier, our brain is driven by interest, not importance. That's what gets our brain activated. That's what gets the dopamine going. So because of that, we're always like curious and learning new things and wanting to have new experiences. And I just think we're more open to like how the culture is evolving. Like you have kids, right? They're all teenagers?
They're 22, 21, and 19.
Yeah, and I bet you're like the cool dad that like knows kind of
I
more
think so.
like what's going on with them, right?
But sometimes I have this moment where like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm a dad. Am I ready to be a dad?
Like you
But
don't
I'm
feel like
already
a real grown up. Like I always was like, felt like I was running around like, I'm a mom. People think I'm responsible. My kids get to school on time. But I was like, they're going to find out. They're going to find out that this is not real.
That's exactly how I feel. Like I can't believe sometimes that I'm a dad.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't think I'm mature enough to be a dad. Freaks me out. Like I make an effort to parent, right? I make an effort to have a relationship with my kids. And sometimes I take each one of them and I try to give them wisdom that I have, but I don't think it comes out that way. Like my father always had great gems of wisdom for me that were fantastic. And it doesn't, I don't think it comes out the same way when I give it to them. Like when I pass, are my kids that go, oh, Dad used to say this all the time. Dad was right about this. Like, I don't know if I have that because I feel like I'm still them.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think that you probably are guiding them in a way that you just can't see right now. I think that, you know, just from talking to a lot of parents, I think we all feel like that to a big degree. And usually you see it more in like how you notice them interacting with other people. You see your wisdom there versus them telling you that they're picking up on it. But I mean, not to be like a parasocial stalker from listening to the radio and hearing about your family. It seems like you have strong relationships.
I think so. I think I have strong
like you as a person. Which
I think so.
Not a lot of dads can say that.
Well, like sometimes I get my feelings hurt when my kids go hang out with their friends and then their friend's dad. I'm like, hey, you never come hang out with me. But how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
And does ADHD, is it genetic? Can it go down? Like
it's about, the statistics are 85% of kids with ADHD have a parent that has ADHD. 2 out of my 3 are diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh, wow. Did you diagnose them like you knew?
Not really. So I was actually diagnosed after my daughter was. That's sort of how I realized I had ADHD, was filling out her paperwork. I was like, they're talking about me too. And when she was a lot younger when she was diagnosed. It's been many, many years now. But I remember thinking, like, I'm not going to be able to help her and really, like, let this awesome kid I was seeing in front of me, like, live up to who she was meant to be if I don't fix my own shit.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you need to edit that or not, but
No.
when I went through that process, it was a big awakening for me because I really had context for all the things that I was struggling with for so long, but didn't really understand. I had been very into like personal development and trying to like fix what I felt like were things that were a problem. And then I had this like child who had some things that she was really struggling with, but also had like the biggest personality of anyone I've ever met. Like she had these amazing qualities, but they were so blocked by the other things that were giving her issues at school and things like that.
So has she been able to cope now? You've been able to help her?
She is amazing. Like I mean, every kid has their kid things that they do. She's 16, but she has really blossomed. She is such a doer. I feel like she gets a lot of really great feedback from coaches and for the people that she works for.
Is she an athlete?
Yeah, she is such a problem solver. She's like such a busy bee worker.
What sport is she in?
She's a cheerleader.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's thriving. I think that a lot of that is just empowering her to live into the things that she's strong on and like let go of expectations around things that don't matter as much.
Oh, that's good. Let me ask you this about ADHD. And it's so funny because I knew I was going to interview you, and I started to be self-aware of certain things. And so I thought today something happened. I go, I'm going to ask her if this is ADHD. So like I said, one of the things I tried to do was get my yayas out before I came here so I could be calm. And I was on the treadmill, and I put together a playlist of music that I like. And I'm either one or the other. I can either listen to the same song 100 times in a row, or I can listen to 100 songs, just the beginning parts, my favorite parts.
Yeah.
And today it was all my favorite parts of songs. I would just go, I'd start the treadmill, like this part of the song, go to the next part, go to the next part. Are those symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're describing exactly how it is in the car with me and my daughter. We're like literally over and over and over again on one song, or it's like skip this part, that's boring, next part, you know.
Like I can listen to Backstreet Boys, I want it that way on a loop over and over again.
Yeah, I love listening to the same song over and over again when it's the right song.
Well, good to give me peace to know that. So it's not a negative to have ADHD.
I mean, it really depends on your environment and your circumstances. It definitely can be for people that don't have the context of why certain things are wrong, for people, you know, that may have found themselves in a job or career that doesn't fit their strengths that come with their brain and has a lot of tasks that are like requiring high level focus all of the time. If you're in a career that's really boring, you're probably going to have a hard time sticking with that.
That's true.
And you can experience a lot of like, you know, job hopping or, you know, the relationship thing you brought up, that can be a problem if you don't understand how you operate. Sleep. Oh my gosh. Sleep is a big topic.
Is it?
Sleep is so tough because the better you're sleeping with ADHD, the better your brain's going to function.
Do you monitor your sleep?
I am obsessed with sleep.
So am I.
Yeah.
Okay, so give me tips. What do you mean? What do you do?
I mean, now I have to do like 100 things to sleep good, and if they're all working, they work. But like to back it up a little bit, something that is really hard for people with ADHD is kind of like getting our brain to power down at night. Oftentimes, like as soon as we close our eyes, we've got new ideas. We're like thinking about the next day. We're planning a business. We're having anxiety about being on time tomorrow. Like there's all these things going on. Our brains are so busy with ADHD. So I think it's really important to like process some of that before you go to sleep. I like to give myself time to kind of transition out of my day. And for me, that usually I have to pick the first thing I'm doing the next day. I need to know what that is so that my brain's not thinking about that when I'm trying to sleep. I need to like kind of do an activity that's not super boring, but not super stimulating, if that makes sense. Like I can't watch some crazy documentary right before bed because then I'm going to go on Reddit and read about the crazy documentary, and then I'm going to be thinking about it and I'm not going to be able to sleep. So I have to do something kind of like low-key calmer than that. And then to actually go to sleep, I take magnesium. I have earpods with a soundscape in my ears every night. It's really hard for me to sleep if they're not charged, which is also a problem with the ADHD because sometimes I forget to put them back in the morning. I have to fall asleep before my husband because he will like be moving around and waking me up. And if all of that is working, I can sleep pretty good. But it's tough. I have teenagers. I'm waiting for them to get home. And then that just kind of disrupts everything. And then I feel the impact.
Do you wear an Oura ring or a Whoop, or do you have
my watch tracks my sleep.
Oh, it does? Mm-hmm. And so do you think you sleep pretty well? Or
it depends. Yeah, it depends on what's going on in my life. Like also being female hormonally, like I've noticed different patterns. But yeah, and it also depends on like if I'm doing all the things I know that help, if I'm exercising, if I'm like not eating right before bedtime, if one little thing kind of falls apart.
I'm exactly like you.
Yeah,
you just said.
It's tough.
Exactly like that. I don't like to watch anything. I'm doing that whole thing now where I'm trying to get away from my phone an hour or two before I go to bed. But there's just so much always happening. You know, I'm trying to not be addicted to my phone.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one. Like it's really tough, right? Because we're so connected. And a couple times, I was just talking about this on the radio show the other day. Whenever I get away from my phone for a couple hours, when I come back, I really didn't miss much.
Nope.
You know?
Nope.
Except for one time I went away for 3 days and I didn't put my phone away for 3 days and I missed a whole bunch.
Yeah.
It was
yeah, striking that balance is hard. I think that people with ADHD can benefit a lot from having some rules around that for themselves. Like for me, I really try to read at night or watch something really like kind of
I think reading really
familiar.
helps.
Yeah,
clear
reading
the brain,
is the best.
But it's hard for me to do that.
Yeah, sometimes I fall asleep reading, which I think isn't necessarily a bad thing because then I can just sleep.
Do you drink alcohol?
I like alcohol, but I'm trying not to drink very much of it because especially as I've gotten older, that's what my watch tells me has the biggest impact on my sleep.
Yeah, big time. But what about like when you back in your days, whenever you were partying and you would drink? Did you see effects of ADHD? Like when I look back, like my college days, I don't know if I had. I mean, I'm sure I had it, but I don't. You just live in life.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I wasn't getting things done. Right? I don't know. Is there something like that? Like, did you have that?
I mean, I definitely feel like I relate to just getting through college on vibes.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Northern Arizona. I had a lot of fun in college, but I did also drink a lot, and I passed. I probably didn't do as well as I could have. It's hard to separate, like, what was the problem? You know what I mean? Like, if it was drinking too much in college, or if it was not sleeping, or all of those things.
I always had this thing where I was like, I wish I could go back, because now I know how important it was. Like, at the time, I was just, I don't know what I was doing, but I mean, and part of it I thought it's because I was 17.
Yeah.
Like, man, I need to go back. This is important, but it's too late. I'm already this far down the road. I can't go back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of people that were diagnosed later in life, or people that were diagnosed younger, but like really didn't understand what was going on with them. And they sometimes have a lot of grief for like, oh, if I had known this, I could have done this differently. But I think that kind of applies to a lot of humans, whether it's ADHD or not, right? Like, we don't know what we know until we know it. And sometimes that information finds us later in life. So I do think it's better if we like focus on the future versus, I mean, we got to heal stuff from the past, but there's nothing we can do to go back and change that. And there's probably good lessons and things you learned from, the mistakes you've had too, right?
You seem very calm, though. Like, look, I'm trying not to move, and I'm moving around. And I'm like,
it depends on what day you find me.
You said earlier, so you listened to my radio show, right? And then earlier, before we sat down, you started to say something. I was like, wait. So you said, like, you've listened to the show enough to know about ADHD, me, my personality.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned ADHD a lot. I think actually, I haven't been listening as regularly now because I was listening a lot when I was driving my teenagers because it was appropriate for them. But now I've got my little 11-year-old who, like, he doesn't need to be listening to Second Date Update. But I was listening this morning because I knew I was going to be talking to you. And you mentioned ADHD. And I think someone called in and talked about, like, they have a partner that they appreciate because they have ADHD and it's hard for them to, like, make meals for themselves and do things like that. Yeah, and that came up. But, I had been listening to you for a long time. You were always my like commute to work show, and you guys made me late for work a lot because I'd be in my car and I'd be like, I got to find out what's happening on War of the Roses. I can't go in there. But it was interesting as a listener, like hearing you kind of slip it in, talk about it here and there. And then once I was like getting my diagnosis and understanding ADHD and then moving into the field, I was like, this makes sense.
Really?
Like, and that's something I try not to do it too much unless people have disclosed that they have ADHD. But like, oftentimes I meet people and when they find out what I do, they're like, oh, I have ADHD too. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I knew it. You know what I mean? Like,
when you say what you do, how would you classify what you do?
So like the work I'm doing. So I do focus on writing quite a bit. So I have my book. I also do articles and things like that. I do a lot of speaking engagements. Really what I am, I feel like, is a advocator and educator on ADHD. I do talks to organizations to help them understand their ADHD employees and how to accommodate them. I do some coaching. So I work with individuals and groups as well.
So someone might have, like, I might have somebody on the show that has worse ADHD than me. So there's a way to talk to them, to communicate with them. What's a tip for that?
For what someone should do?
Yeah, how do you talk to someone that has ADHD? How do you coach someone that has ADHD?
So coaching is really a lot about helping guide the client to strategies that are going to work for them. So usually if I'm going to work with a client, I'm going to figure out a little bit about what their goals are. And I'm going to talk to them about like kind of the outcomes they're looking for. And then I'm going to ask them a lot of questions and help them kind of get to the bottom of what's not working and create pathways that will work for them. And then that's all coaching, right? That's sort of the modality. With ADHD coaching, I'm also trained to look at that through like the ADHD lens. So a person might come in and they're trying to build a new business or something like that. And they've read all these books that this is the way to do it, right? And they're like, really like, I'm not doing it. But they're really going to need to get rid of that framework that was built for people with more neurotypical brains and build a framework that makes sense for their ADHD brain. And I'm there to help them find those answers.
You know what's funny? Because when you say that, I think about how every morning we have a meeting before the show starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I go over with everybody so we have a show sheet of where things are going to happen at certain times. And I don't know why, maybe it's the ADHD brain, but I'll say, we're doing this at 6:05. And you would think that I'm going to go, here's what we're doing at 6:20. Instead, I go to 8:30. And then I'll go to 7:20. And I go to these different times, and everyone follows me now. They get it. Because sometimes I'll go, why can't I just go in order?
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
Our brains are not linear brains. Our brains are like, I always say, we don't think in a straight line, we think in a spider web. So
yeah, boy, that is good. Because man, my wife frustrated with my calendar. When I put something on my phone, I might have a meeting at 1:00 on Wednesday, and I'll make it for 11 on Thursday. I know exactly when it is. I know where I got to be, but and she just does not understand it. What about do you do this with your alarm clock? I have a weird system for my alarm clock. So I get up at 3:15 in the morning, but I set my clock so it says 3:45.
Yeah.
But it's really 3:15. So when I get up, it drives my wife crazy. Not now, but she's used to it. But that way, when I get up and I go brush my teeth, it says 3:45 on the clock. But when I get up to go brush my teeth, I'm like, oh, it's 3:20. I'm way ahead of myself.
Yeah, and you're excited. You have bonus time now.
Yes.
But what's happening there is I've mentioned the ADHD brain is motivated by interest. It's also motivated by urgency. So when you're waking up at 3:45, your brain's a little bit like, oh, crap, I'm late.
Yeah.
So you need that urgency. Your brain's releasing dopamine, and that gets you out of bed. And then once you realize you have time, you're like, okay, it's cool. The problem is sometimes we figure out our own tricks, and then they don't work anymore.
This is so good.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It's like it all makes sense. I was like, I totally feel not alone right now.
Oh, good.
You know
that was a huge goal of mine, because when I realized I had ADHD, I thought I was like the only corporate mom of 3 that was dealing with this, and then I started having conversations with people.
But you don't want to change anything, do you?
I don't. Not now.
I don't
either.
You know,
I might have had a different answer if you asked me at a different point in my life. But now that I understand my strengths, my values, I stopped kind of like doing things just because I should, and the world was telling me this is the right way, and I started doing things in a way that worked for me. I appreciate how my brain is wired. It would be impossible for me to say I needed to change having ADHD when I look at my kids that have ADHD, and I think they're amazing. Like, I don't want them to change. I want them to learn about themselves and, really be able to thrive, but I don't want them to change. I don't want them to have a different brain. I wouldn't ask them to be different.
Can you remember conversations?
It depends if they were good conversations.
Well, let's say I had a meeting with somebody and I had great news, and then I was going to tell Rich, my partner, and you're not going to believe this. And I had this great meeting with so-and-so. What happened? And I remember like chunks of it. I don't remember all of it. Or like on the way here, I had this great meeting about a possible investment that I wanted to do. And I can't wait to tell my wife, and I kind of forgot about it already. Like, I know I'm going to tell her after this podcast's over and I see her for dinner tonight. And I know I'm going to not tell her the important stuff. If that makes sense, like I'm going to miss chunks of it. I didn't write it down. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to remember it, but I don't remember anything.
Yeah, sometimes we trust our brains more than we should.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. I think that's what's so interesting about ADHD. It's not that we can't remember things, but sometimes we're not always remembering the right things. Like you might remember like that you really liked that guy's outfit or his shoes, but like the important, like when do I need to like, do this thing to make this other thing happen, sometimes that's not clicking as much because in that moment that wasn't as interesting as the other stuff that was going on in that conversation.
What's the thing in your book, your other thing, Hummingbird, you're some sort of a hummingbird company?
So the name of my coaching practice is Hummingbird ADHD.
Hummingbird ADHD.
Yeah.
That's funny. I could remember the ADHD part. What's why Hummingbird?
So it's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it a little bit shorter. But when I was doing my coaching certification classes, I had started them in 2019, and then I was still working at the time, so I had taken a break. And then the next class I took was in March 2020. And so all of a sudden, I'm taking this course, and all my kids are home. Like, my house is chaotic. And so I ended up taking a lot of the calls in my backyard, and there were always like hummingbirds flying around me. And I got really curious about hummingbirds. during one of the calls when I should have been paying attention. And I was sidebarring, Googling hummingbirds, and I found out they have really interesting, unique brains. And that kind of all came together for me. I thought it was like a cool moment to understand, like, these are cool creatures, right? They're very unique, and I'm glad they exist. And that's how I feel about the ADHD brain. It's unique. It needs to be here, and we just need to understand it better sometimes.
That's great. So people can hire you.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Hummingbird ADHD or go get this book.
Yeah.
And in there, they can hire you. You come into corporations and try to,
Mm-hmm.
hey,
Yep.
here's how you deal with someone that has an ADHD mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or coach individuals or coach groups or
Yep.
speak places. And
Doing it all.
because I saw this morning, I saw you post this morning on Instagram. They had all these things today, and I was like, oh man, is she going to cancel my interview? But you did stuff already today.
Yeah, I spoke at a summit for ADHD adults today earlier, which was really fun. That was online though, so I didn't even have to leave my house. But yeah, I do webinars for corporations. I coach private clients. I also have a community for adults with ADHD, and we do a lot of like getting together on a Zoom and planning our week so that we have accountability.
Okay, so
we have
so for
support.
me, if I don't know if I have ADHD, but I'm over Zooms. I can't do Zooms.
Yeah.
Is that an ADHD thing? Because
I work on Zoom, so I don't like
Right.
to do a lot of other Zooms. I really
Drives me
do
up the
prefer
wall.
in person.
like this podcast, people, oh yeah, I'll do a Zoom. I'm not going to
Yeah.
Zoom. You got to come in.
No, in person is always better for me, but like
Mhm.
usually most of my coaching is done over Zoom right now,
Mhm.
just because I coach clients everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have big groups too, like everyone?
Yeah, I do group coaching and things like that. Yeah.
So you'll have, like today, you spoke for how many people in your webinar?
I wasn't running the webinar, so I don't know on the back end, but I think it was a couple hundred logged into that today.
And you have
Mhm.
a beginning, middle, end to a speech? Like you have a, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
have different talks. So today it was a panel, so it was more interview based,
Wow.
kind of like doing a podcast with several people,
Right.
basically. But for if I go into a corporation or something like that, it depends on what they want me to talk about. But I have, a talk on understanding ADHD at work. So understanding how your employees operate, what accommodations work for them, how employees can accommodate themselves.
Mhm.
And then I have some things on entrepreneurship that I speak on. I have a really good talk about ADHD and over optimization and how we can go down rabbit holes and try to over optimize.
Mhm.
And that's a really fun one that I like to present to groups of entrepreneurs and people that are kind of interested.
So
in
in
that.
this short amount of time, you've done quite a bit,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the book, the webinars, and all in 2020, since 2020?
Yeah, I started kind of dipping my toes in about 2019, but yeah.
Wow.
It's been a
Congratulations.
whirlwind for sure.
So how would you rate this whole podcast today as far as the ADHD? Was this a good podcast so far?
It was good, yeah.
Was it good?
I mean, most of the time I am talking to people with ADHD,
Oh.
so I like that better.
So you would say right now in this interview, I told you that I had a therapist tell me I have ADHD. You would say to me right now that I have ADHD.
I am not a doctor.
It's
just
okay.
for
Sure.
legal purposes, but I think the signs are there.
And you know what? I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm happy about it.
Good.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much for having me.
This is a whole new thing for me. And this is such a great cover and such a great name. It all makes sense now. Amazon, wherever, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thanks. Okay, so welcome to our podcast. This is a little bit different today because this podcast is a spin-off of our radio show.